Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast, where each Tuesday, your host, Rick Sayes, gathers around the mic with outdoor industry entrepreneurs, brand leaders, founders, and enthusiasts to share stories from the backcountry, the startup files, and the retail aisles. Rick's guests offer actionable advice to land your ideal industry gig, grow your outdoor career, or plan your next big adventure. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And now, here's Rick.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 347 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Noah Swartz from Erem Boots joins me today. Noah and the passionate Erem team of gear junkies, activists, and desert rats are motivated every day to produce the best, most environmentally sustainable desert footwear possible. They're also committed to planting 1 million pear cacti, which has huge potential in the fight against climate change. Welcome to the show, Noah.
Hey, Rick. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Great to be on.
Yeah, good to connect with you and meet you over the phone. I look forward to catching up in person one day. Maybe I'll come and see you guys in the desert or probably at trade shows where it'll happen.
I can hope for the desert, but yeah, I can imagine that trade shows probably sooner rather than later. And especially as we kind of ramp up maybe our push into the wholesale world, probably even more likely to happen. But
cool.
No matter what, looking forward to the chance to connect.
Yeah. Well, if you want to come out here and do anything in the desert out here in Bishop, let me know because I can connect you with some folks and have some good spots to go hang out at, test some boots. That'd be fun.
Careful what you offer, because I might well take you up on that beautiful part of the world. And so we're always looking for good product testers too. So I'm looking for a good venture. So might decide to follow you up on that.
Right on. Sounds good. Cool. So before we get into the meat and potatoes, I got to know more about these jelly bean bribes that was it your mom that gave you to keep hiking? Tell everybody a little bit about that story. It's a great story.
Yeah, definitely. So at a really early age, my parents were taking me and my brothers out hiking, taking us outdoors, just weekends, family vacations. So it was just a big part of what we did. And I guess my parents got maybe a little bit fed up with dealing with like the whiny 2-year-olds that didn't want to walk or whatever it was at a certain point.
Right.
And so my mom devised this system, which as I look back on it was definitely it's basically just like parent bribery, but I guess it worked, which is
genius actually.
It's genius. It was totally genius. She carried this little bag of jelly beans with her. And basically it's like if you walked 100 steps, you got rewarded with a jelly bean. And she didn't do this all the time. It was only when one of us was having like a meltdown or whatever. But I actually think one of just kind of the neat things about that is just we talk about like the sensory experiences of being outdoors. One of them that I have from a very early age is just like sugary sweet, right? Like I can taste nice when I was a little kid. And so it imprinted in my memory just a different way, just the pleasure of being outdoors. And I give my parents credit for that and kind of showing that to me on a really early on. So yeah, I look fondly back on the jelly bean memories. And when my wife and I kind of get outdoors now, it's definitely something we pretend that we need to bribe ourselves with as an excuse to eat jelly beans.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, carry on the tradition. That's awesome. Were they mixed flavors or all the same flavor?
Oh, no, it was definitely mixed.
Uh-huh. And did you have a favorite?
And my favorite, 100%. My favorite color is blue,
okay.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And so it's always been blue. And so I feel like over the years, it's been like, what is it, blue raspberry or cotton candy, whatever it was.
Yeah, right.
But we used to barter jelly beans, because my eldest brother, he liked red. So it was, these things with currency. This was the important stuff. So yeah, I was always a blue guy.
Yeah, awesome. That's good to know. Well, I'll be sure and have some blue jelly beans if you come out here.
Ooh, now you're making this too good.
There you go. Come on. Let's see. It's only getting better. So did you work in the family business at all, the timberland business?
So my dad sold timberland when I was in high school. And so he sold it before I was of full-time working age. But I think probably a lot of kids can relate to this. When your parents are like really passionate about what they do or they work a really intense job, whatever it is, it definitely can find its way back home, right? Even if the parent tries really hard, maybe to leave it at the office. And so from a really early age, Rick, dinner time conversation was very frequently about the family business. And because it was a family business, right? My grandfather was involved too, right? And so it wasn't necessarily something that was just kind of this part of my dad that I never saw. Actually, he brought it home a decent amount, and we'd go up to see him quite frequently. And then the other piece of it is he used to get us involved, right? Which is even if it was kind of in cute kind of little kid ways. But one of my early memories, Rick, is he would bring kind of patterns, like silhouettes, right, of the new styles that timberland could be worked on from a footwear standpoint. And he'd come back and give one of these cutouts, each of my brothers and I, and he'd tell us, all right, start coloring and come up with some color ideas. Now, I'm still disappointed in him that the rainbow design I came up with when I was 4 years old with the fuchsia and the blue, somehow that one never really
made it in the line.
That's really why I started a footwear company, so I could finally get that style built. But yeah, it's definitely when you're totally all in on something like this, it becomes a piece of you. And as an entrepreneur, I can definitely kind of see that firsthand, which is really business kind of becomes an extension of you in a lot of different ways. And so our family vacations were all built around where did my dad have to travel that summer for work, right? And so this kind of line between family and business, when you have a family business, it can be murky and it can be pretty dynamic. So yeah, I mean, from a very early age, just remember kind of so much this kind of just seeping in through osmosis.
Yeah. Well, and it was, for you guys, it was a generational family business. Not like your dad owned the family hardware store on the corner. This was a generational thing, so I'm sure it permeated you guys' life for years.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, he was the third generation of our family. My great-grandfather started the business. And so, yeah, it was a generational thing. And I feel really privileged to be able to count both my dad and my grandfather as investors in Erem. And so to me, that generational piece, and it's actually really important to me as I think about this business, which Rick maybe we'll talk about a little bit later on, is actually think about the logo for the company and actually from a mission standpoint too. The generational piece is actually really important to how we approach things. And so, yeah, grateful to be able to have seen that model from a pretty early age.
Very cool. Yeah, that's good. Good on you. And in launching Erem, did you consider other product categories, or footwear just in your DNA and you went right to footwear?
So we definitely did consider other product categories, and we still consider other product categories. But by the same token, footwear was, I think, a really logical place for us to start for two reasons. The first is, from a need standpoint, nothing will ruin your experience in the outdoors quite like a tiny little blister on your pinky toe.
That is true.
And yeah, which is kind of remarkable. And so in terms of like where was the most acute need, we thought from a performance standpoint, we thought then, we think now it starts with footwear. And so that was kind of number one, which is we set out to build this brand inspired by the desert and to build products that could live up to the extremes of the desert so they could outperform everywhere else. Starting the place where we saw the biggest market need for that performance, where you wouldn't have hiking boot delamination 3 hours in, right? Where you could actually have boots that could protect you against extremely aggressive terrain, that could truly breathe in real temperature swings, right? We thought footwear was the place to start. And then second piece, if you can match your strengths with the perceived market needs, we think that's a place to win and to concentrate. And so yeah, definitely having at the table, we've got, oh gosh, I don't even know, like 100+ years of combined footwear experience, and being able to bring that to bear, even as a small company, was something that we thought would position us well.
Yeah, makes total sense. And you focused on desert landscapes right out of the gate. Was that because of the need? I mean, there really aren't any, or until you guys, really aren't any great desert-specific boots, at least that I know of. But was that something that you focused on the need and the opportunity, or you just love the desert?
Again, it's a perfect combination of both. So I grew up in the Northeast.
Yeah,
Rick, for the past decade, when I've been outdoors, been in deserts or semi-desert environments, and I fell in love with it. And so what really kind of prompted me starting the business is 2.5 years ago, my wife and I were in Southwest Utah, and we were having a pretty fun time on the trail. One day woke up and it was below freezing, it was snowing, and by middle of the afternoon, it was pretty hot and sunny. And we had, as it's wont to be in Southwest Utah at that time of year, right? And we had just as best we could, but our gear just wasn't really built for that type of temperature fluctuation and for going from cold and wet to hot and dry. And so here we were surrounded by the most beautiful red rock on earth, like just, I think it's like a place of like universal, like human soulfulness.
Special place, isn't it? Yeah.
But by the same token, I developed this like pretty nasty set of blisters.
Right.
And so limping off the trail that day, kind of just was talking about it with my wife, which it just didn't make sense to you, which is here we are, one of the most beautiful places on earth. And just not familiar with any gear or any brands or products that were really kind of made to handle these types of challenges. And so that to me was kind of what really sparked it and why our brand is inspired by and born in the desert in a lot of different ways. And I think the other piece of that is, so deserts cover a third of the Earth's land mass, 20% of the global population lives in deserts. And the thing is, like, these really are some of the most extreme conditions and terrains on Earth. So our view is if it can perform in the desert, it can and should outperform everywhere else. And so for us, The desert is both creative muse in a lot of ways. On a personal note, I love the desert. But I talk to some folks that, say, well, hey, I don't really live near the desert. What does the brand have to offer for me? And there, my view is, look, I guarantee you that if this thing can perform on the 800-mile Arizona Trail, I guarantee you it can perform on your hike in, call it North Carolina, or speaking to a folk in New Hampshire, whatever it is, right?
PCT, whatever it might be.
Exactly. It's a performance standard for us that we didn't really see out in the market, that we actually feel we quite believe in, which is that performs in the desert, it will outperform everywhere else. So that's kind of the focal point for the brand.
Well, it makes sense too, because you're right. Those of us that have spent a lot of time in the desert, you go, whether you're high or low, the extreme, temperatures and landscape are extreme. They're just, things change a lot, change fast. And if you have to keep changing, carry a couple pairs of footwear, that's not going to work. So good for you on nailing that. And good for you for recognizing the opportunity. I mean, you just nailed it.
Yeah, thank you. And definitely for sure a team effort. And when I was starting the business, the first thing I did is went and talked to, just folks that are smarter and more experienced than I. And it was to get kind of the feedback that, it would be really nice if there was a boot that could live up to the ground temperatures of the Grand Canyon, but was also
at the top and the bottom
able to handle. It was exactly right. And so you talk to folks and you realize, all right, well, I'm definitely not the only person that thinks this would be awesome to have, and it kind of puts some fuel into your tank and kind of gets you pretty stoked. And for me, definitely on a just kind of going forward, is nothing more rewarding to talking to people that'll say hey, Warrior boots, and where it was, it could be Southern California or I don't know, Southern Florida. It doesn't matter. You talk to people and say hey, this performed and kind of served this need that I had. It makes you feel good. So yeah,
that's cool. And tell us about the name Erem. Tell our listeners about that. How'd you settle on that? Where'd that come from?
Yeah, totally. So Erem comes from two things. The first is the Greek word for desert, eremos, because we were inspired by and born in the desert. I had that kind of epiphany in Southwest Utah. But then the other piece is it's an acronym. So Erem stands for exceptional, responsible, enduring, and motivated. EREM, right? And that's our product promise. That's our brand philosophy. As a brand, we're really about three things. The first is to deliver best-in-class performance for the outdoors, inspired by the desert. The second piece is to raise the sustainability bar for the outdoor industry. And the third is to identify solutions to solve some of our planet's biggest challenges. And exceptional, responsible, enduring, and motivated, to me, gets at exactly those three things. And so we're proud to have that as our name and be able to slap that on our boots and on our website.
Yeah, nails it. I love it. That's good how you got inspired for that. That's a great little story. What was the Kickstarter experience like? And you're still involved in that, so it must have been pretty good when you launched.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got 19 days left on our Kickstarter, at least at the time of this recording. And so this was our first Kickstarter campaign. And
I thought you had another one. I thought you had another one to start with. Oh, no, I must have misread that.
No worries. So we launched our business direct to consumer online. But this is our first Kickstarter campaign.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so we're doing it to launch our Gila sandals, our third product. The Gila is, in our view, the best performing adventure sandal on the market, and also the most sustainable. And so, we've learned a ton about how do you do a Kickstarter and things like that. But the reason we did it is just because we want to kind of share the good news with folks, and we're super excited about it. And not ready to be shipped just yet today, but we couldn't contain our excitement anymore. Wanted to kind of get folks in on it. And as a small brand, Kickstarter offers some really cool functionality for us about trying to actually get the product made. And so to be able to turn to our kind of brand community to help us do that is something that's really valuable. And then the other piece of it, Rick, is as a new brand, we think it's really valuable to be able to approach some of the big retailers or some independent retailers, doesn't really matter, and just say that, hey, we're a small brand. You may not have heard of us before, but we have some data that we can show that says that our hypothesis, which is that a better performing adventure sandal that is better for the world at a competitive price point could help take the industry by storm. Hey, and guess what? We actually have some data that proves that we're not just talking to ourselves, that customers actually agree. Kickstarter is also a really cool way to be able to get some of that data as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a huge piece of it, because you walk into the retailer with some consumer validation, which makes your sales job much simpler, not necessarily easier, but much simpler, because the product, you don't have to overcome, you can easily overcome a lot of those objections right out of the gate. So yeah, that's awesome. It's
That's exactly right.
yeah.
To be able to say, hey, we've already got 300 folks that are really excited to try this, and only a couple of days into our Kickstarter, we're 3.5 times the goal that we set for ourselves, right? Like, it's we think that's helpful for a sales pitch.
It's market tested, field tested, consumer tested, all the things.
You got it.
That's good. Yeah, I've had a few people on the show that have launched on Kickstarter, and it's a great program. Yeah, I love it. Are you working on any line extensions or other new products that you can talk about?
We certainly are. So in addition to our Gila sandal, come on, what were you expecting, right?
I was hoping that would be the answer.
Well, I got good news for you then. So in addition to the Gila sandal, we've got a camp shoe that's coming out. It's called the Chuckwalla. I'm, on a personal note, really stoked for this product as well. I love all of our products. This one's also super special too. But our view is there are a lot of slippers on the market, and there are a lot of, call it, shoes or sneakers on the market. But there's really very few true camp shoes, right? The product that you really want to slip your feet into at the end of the day, that's more than just for kind of shuffling around the town. You can actually walk a mile to go see the sunset or whatever it is. And so the Chuckwalla just does that quite beautifully. And so we're really excited to get that into folks' hands. As with every product we release, it's about performance and about sustainability. The Chuckwalla is no different. And then, the other two that I can kind of talk about publicly for right now, though we do have some other stuff, is we're coming out with our all-weather line. And so whereas our first two boots, the Ziracle and Ziracle Expedition, were really built for real hot and dry climates, that's where they really excel, the all-weather line really kind of channels this kind of high desert use case where it certainly gets below freezing and really wet, but you need something to be able to handle the fluctuations a little bit differently. And we have a number of folks in kind of our brand community that I know have been really excited for this product as well, for these two products as well. And so each of these three, the Chuckwalla, the Ziracle All-Weather, and the Ziracle Expedition, we're really pumped to start to go live with those two. And so we're talking about it, but it hasn't hit our site yet or anything. It'll happen at the end of Q4. So just a couple months away. Yeah,
a couple months away. People can grab that at the end of the year. That's awesome. Well, I can't wait to check those out. You're right, though, on it. Here in Bishop, we get 100-degree days, and then a few weeks later it's snowing. So you never know.
Exactly.
So you've been here. You know what it's like. So, yeah. And you get the same weather down kind of where you're at, don't you? A little bit of snow, a little bit of heat, and all the above.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely. Look, here's the thing. Most of the Western United States is desert, high desert, or semi-desert, right? And so obviously it varies a little bit, and we talk about the impacts of the climate change and everything like that, what that's doing to everything from a weather pattern standpoint. But I think depending on where you are, what does a 3-season boot mean versus a 4-season boot, right? Tucson, Arizona, 3-season boot is going to be a little bit different than a 3-season boot, let's say, in a place like Park City, right? We build products that we think have kind of maximal versatility, but also do certain things really well. And so we think the all-weather line we're coming out with is the perfect complement to the existing collection. And so, really kind of starting to get focused on that high desert use case where at times it really feels like you're in a desert, and other times it really feels like this is like crazy snowstorms in the winter. It isn't what a lot of folks think about when they think about. Yeah, exactly. It's not what they think about when they think about the word desert, right? But so high desert's really this second use case that we're really kind of excited to get after.
Yeah, good. So let's switch gears a little bit. Which functional area of the brand do you feel strongest connection to? Are you more in the design world, the ops world, marketing, sales? What do you gravitate to? I'm sure you're involved in all of them, but.
So as a small company, CEO stands for Chief Everything Officer.
Right.
But for me, what is it? Your question is, where do I feel the strongest connection to? The place that whatever allows me to get outside the most, which, is probably with decreasing regularity these days, unfortunately. And so if that means I get to be the product tester, sign me up. If that means I get to go make a sales call because I get to take some buyer for a hike, whatever that is too, definitely sign me up. That's the executive privilege that I like to be able to play, which is get me outdoors as much as I can. I think other than that, the piece that I'm also really drawn to, I love the brand building piece of actually going out and talking to people. I love talking to people about their product needs. I love talking to people about how the outdoors resonates with them and how that can inform how we kind of think about our messaging. And I love talking to people in our community about the change that we're trying to make from a biocircular standpoint, from what we're doing with planting cactus pear, right? So the kind of piece around building brand community around issues that I really care about, whether it's getting products that will serve you better, products that are better for the world, or trying to come up with some novel ideas to try and kind of save our planet. For me, it's all about fostering the community to do that. I'm a very big fan of it takes a village to do anything worthwhile. And so I like to be that person to try and kind of convene the village, so to speak. That's the part that I really had a bit for.
Gather the village. That's awesome. We're going to take a little break and give some love to our sponsor, Grammarly. If you write as much as I do, it's nice to have a little backup with the spelling and grammar, and I use Grammarly. Their instant grammar checker corrects all grammar errors and enhances your writing. To try it out, go to ricksays.com/grammarcheck and get signed up today. You can thank me later. That's ricksays.com/grammarcheck. Now back to the show. And tell our listeners about biocircular. That's a great term.
Yeah, totally. So biocircular is the sustainability standard that Erem pursues. And I think just for a bit of context here, right, we live in a linear consumer economy, right? And people buy things and then they use them and eventually turns into trash. And where you see the focus from most businesses from a sustainability standpoint is how do we get you like within reason, like the cleanest version of the product we can for you then to use and then throw out. So like we're going to sell you this thing, but we're going to try and take as many chemicals out of it as we can, which is definitely a good thing. Don't get me wrong. But our view is this kind of whole linear approach is just doesn't really make sense. It's kind of what's gotten us into this mess. Instead, we believe that businesses need to take responsibility for the entire life cycle of their products, not just to the point of sale. And so what that means is it's not enough for us to focus on how do we get you the cleanest version of the product which we can, which of course we do, but that as a business, our responsibility extends to after we've already sold you the product. And so bringing that back, what does biocircular mean? Biocircular means bio plus circular, which means that we aspire to make products that are bio, means they're made only from materials that can return back to the earth, right? That's the bio piece. But it's also circular, which is we're building products that we will take back at the end of their life. And so for us, this is, if you think about nature, like, there's no such thing as trash in like a natural setting. Like that nature doesn't have trash. And so we're trying to mimic that approach, which is don't sell trash. Sell things that can return back to nature and or things that can be reused in kind of useful next lives. And so our Zircle and Zircle Expedition hiking boots currently selling, they are both totally biocircular, right? They are made only from products that have proven paths back to nature. And we will take them back and restream the products into responsible next lives, including we can turn a lot of the materials in the boots into new Erem footwear products. And so now the whole key for us is biocircular, but with uncompromising better performance, right? Which is anybody could sell you like a cotton t-shirt. A cotton t-shirt's it's biocircular, right? But then that gives people the excuse to say, well, but it's not hardcore enough for me. I don't want to wear a cotton t-shirt. I want to wear something super duper hardcore, right? Our view is we got to give customers products that outperform and that are also biocircular. And so the Zircle hiking boots, we certainly think, are the best performing boots in their category. And they set this crazy new standard in the world of sustainability. And so as a brand, that's kind of really what we're all about, which is best in class performance, raise the bar for sustainability. And yeah, we're really proud to be able to accomplish that in these kind of first two products, and definitely something we just want to kind of continue to build over time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I was talking to Ami Bornstein yesterday from SnapLink Consulting. He's going to be on an episode either previous to yours or after yours, and he was talking about the same thing. That's what he does, is he works with people to help him reach all these new indexes, Higg index, and all these other things to make sure that we're heading in this direction, because it is full circle, and we have got to, sooner rather than later, stop filling these landfills and stop making stuff that's going to last long before we're gone. So I'm glad to hear you guys doing that, and I love that term. Is that a new term? I'm just getting familiar with that term. Did you guys make that up, or has that been in existence for a while?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
No, it's a specific term we use. And the reason we did that is there are a lot of terms that mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And so,
or there's terms or words that say things, but you don't know what the hell they mean. What does that mean?
Well, that's unfortunately the reality, which is I came across one shoe where this company was claiming, it was in the industry, the company was claiming it was biodegradable. I was like, Chuck, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because I see some of the materials on this and I know firsthand these are not biodegradable. And then I actually read the fine print on the website, and what it says is 45% of this product biodegrades within 30 days, which technically from an ASTM definition standpoint allows them, I guess, to say that. But it's just like, but what about the other 55% that's just plastic? And so for us, we didn't really want to get caught up in the kind of classic, well, this label, that label, whatever it is, where folks have whatever definition they bring to the table, they don't know. We want to be really intentional with what we're saying, because we think transparency is just like a critical piece of all of this. And so that's why we picked this term where it's just bio plus circular, real simple. We're trying to make products that are bio, and we're trying to make products that are circular, and it's that easy. And so
it's simple. It's a simple concept. Yeah, good for you. You nailed it.
Yeah, it's a simple concept, and it's hard to execute, but it's definitely a simple concept. And that's the thing. Customers, outdoor advocates, it is a simple concept, and people should be steamed that there aren't more brands that are offering this, because as a customer, you have the right to expect that a brand is going to sell you a product that isn't going to end up in a landfill. 300 million shoes are thrown out in America alone each year. And of those 300 million shoes, basically all of them are condemned to live in a landfill for thousands of years, because there's nothing that can happen to them at the end of their life. A lot of folks think about single-use plastic water bottles. We don't really think about footwear the same way. And so, but when you do, you realize, oh man, like buying this product and wearing it for a couple of months, then it falls apart and I buy a new one and it's just trash. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And so we're trying to make products that last longer, perform better, and have responsible next life. That's what BioCircular is all about.
Yeah, that's great. And I think more and more consumers are asking for products like that than ever before, which is good, and more brands are trying, but we have a long way to go. And that's probably, I could do a whole series of podcasts on that, from the financial aspect of it in Wall Street to the boots in the desert. We have a long way to go. Let's just leave it there. We could talk for hours, I'm sure.
100%, right.
Yeah, thanks. What have been the two toughest challenges in getting the brand launched?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Two things come to mind. So number one, we started really as the pandemic was just getting off the ground, right? Like, Erem has been around as long as COVID. And so to create a premium performance product that has a radical new approach to sustainability is difficult. To do that when the world is going to hell in a handbasket and everybody's remote, like, that is really difficult. And so one anecdote that comes to mind to illustrate that is, in the Ziricles, we use linen thread on our outsoles to sew the uppers to the outsoles. And that's footwear practice that goes back hundreds of years. But really, since 1950, not a lot of brands have done that, because most people use cement constructions, or if they're using thread, which is really unusual because most people don't make hand-stitched boots anymore, they're using a synthetic alternative. And so linen definitely works incredibly effectively, but the problem is it's not pervasive practice anymore. It's a little bit more expensive. And so we had to take a 3-month delay to prove that we could use linen thread, which met our environmental standards, because the other thread didn't. Now, the outsole thread, Rick, is like 0.3% of the mass of our boot. It's like really quite bad, 0.0. It's a tiny little percentage. But in order to source the thread, connect the supplier with the factory, recalibrate the factory's sewing machines, to do all that remotely as a small brand during the pandemic, that was really hard. And so I would definitely say making innovative physical products in a pandemic, definitely a challenge. That's number one. Number two is, as a brand, we've committed to planting 1 million prickly pear cacti, cactus pears, because they are, we think, a really promising tool in the fight against climate change. They're 95% more water efficient than orange trees. They can sequester tremendous amounts of carbon, right? 1 million cactus pear will take the equivalent of 40,000 cars off the road every single year, right? And they can grow in places where basically most other carbon sequestering plants cannot. And so 80% of the Colorado River is used for desert agriculture, which is why the Colorado River no longer flows to the ocean, and why we have this huge problem as we're recording this podcast today. Nevada, Arizona, Mexico, Colorado, California are in this big negotiation right now about how are they gonna cut water usage, because there's not enough water in the river to go around.
And by a lot too, not just like 2 or 3%, by a lot. I forget the number, but it's a big number.
Yeah, but by a tremendous amount. And that's because 80% of the river's flow is used for desert agriculture. And when you think about that, it's mind-blowing. And it gets even worse when you realize it's because we're not growing desert-adapted crops. Growing cotton in Arizona makes 0 sense. Growing orange trees in certain parts of Southern California makes 0 sense. These are really thirsty crops. And so we've had this policy in a long time in the Western U.S. where we didn't really think about water, and that's obviously turning into a really huge problem. And so what's incredible about cactus pear is that they produce delicious fruit. They can feed people. They can sequester carbon. They can make farmers money, and they can grow in places where you should not be growing cotton or orange trees or things like that. And so you asked what's been hard about the business. We think this is the clearest. Honestly, I think this is the greatest idea since sliced bread, and I mean that sincerely. If you want to plant a tree, go to the Nature Conservancy and give them $1 and they'll do it for you. If you want to plant a cactus pear that's got the right genetic makeup and can sequester a lot of carbon and feed hungry people, it can't be done because nobody's doing it at scale. And that's what Erem's decided we're crazy enough to try and do. We're going to build out the capacity to do it. So, Rick, we're starting a nonprofit. We've literally going through that as we speak. We've kind of filed the paperwork and everything because we think this idea is much bigger than just our brand. And so we have an organic farm outside of Joshua Tree where we've got the test farm going to prove that this works. And we've got our first couple thousand cacti in the ground. So, but yes, starting an agricultural movement from scratch has been very challenging. But we think it's got huge potential and is worth the fight.
Yeah, no, good on you. And I think it'll have legs. It'll get legs. I think it's, again, your timing is good because as we do more and more damage to the earth and we run out of resources, water, for example, it's been a huge issue here in the Eastern Sierra for years since Bishop was founded. They built a huge aqueduct to move all the water to L.A. So it's been going on a long time all around the world. So I think your timing, again, it's becoming more and more front and center and top of mind to everybody because I apologize to young people all the time. Man, I'm so sorry we screwed this place up for you. But, I grew up in Southern California. I remember working at a JCPenney store, and there was a huge mountain range right to the north of us, Mount Baldy and on the San Bernardino Mountains. And on a normal day, you couldn't see it. And this woman came out from New York. She just moved to town, and she worked for us. And we kept talking about the mountains. And she finally says, "What mountains are you guys talking about?" And the next day, fortunately, the north wind blew, which it does frequently in Fontana if you're from there. And the mountains were there. And she said, "Oh, those mountains, they're literally right there, maybe 10 miles away." And you couldn't see them because of the smog. It would blow in from LA. It's just horrible. So we're making progress. You can see them on a regular basis down there now, but we have a long way to go. So again, good on you guys for taking on that challenge. I'd love to go down and see that place sometime. I'll have to take a drive out there.
Love to host you.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. So back to hiking in the desert. How often do you get to hike in the desert? You get out every day?
Unfortunately not. It's with decreasing regularity that is happening, which is probably the irony of being an entrepreneur. And maybe somebody smarter than I would have realized
small
that's
business.
Where
It'll change at some point. You're still small.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. But yeah, look, for me, when Rick, we were, talking a little bit about this, about the show before we started recording, getting outdoors, getting into the desert, just going surfing, whatever it is, for me, just getting outdoors, it's just it grounds me. And so it might be a little while in between hikes or whatever it is for me, but when I need a reset or when I've got a particular troubling thought I got to work through, whatever it is, or I need some perspective, my answer is only the outdoors. And for me, the desert has a really special place in my heart where it's kind of particularly successful for me in terms of really grounding and just kind of feeling like I'm truly outdoors. But yeah, to me, it's just a function of I just need it for my soul. And so, yeah, more would definitely be better, but honestly, just as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, good for you. That's good. Well, hopefully it keeps happening on a regular basis for you. I agree. I got to get out. I go for walks. I just step outside sometimes. I just got to go outside and go for a walk around the block. You just have to do it. So good on you. Do you have any suggestions or advice for folks looking to take their product or company idea to market?
Yeah, the one thing that comes to mind is socialize it. And what I mean by that is I think there's a little bit of this kind of illusion, which is don't share good ideas with other people because, I don't know, somebody will steal the idea or whatever it is. And I think it's really hard to go from an idea to a business. I wouldn't be too worried about folks stealing the idea. But, even more kind of powerfully than that, again, I'm a really big fan of It Takes a Village. And so go get feedback on the idea first and foremost. You can get feedback from everybody, and most ideas need refining of some kind. So start there. Just start talking about the idea with a lot of people and see if it's resonating. And then the other piece about socializing it is you kind of form advocates and allies and kind of wisdom networks that way too, which is you'll talk to somebody who you think knows nothing about whatever it is you're talking about. And then they'll say, oh, hey, by the way, like my cousin or this buddy of mine, whatever it is, like they've got this friend that like works at this company. And then all of a sudden you realize like, well, now maybe I found somebody that actually knows how to do this thing I don't know how to do. And it's to really bring like a product to market takes so many different discrete skill sets and capabilities that to be able to build a network of people that can help speed you along, whether or not they're like actual partners of yours, whether it's just like somebody gives you 45 minutes to give you some advice or point you in the direction of a linen supplier for your outsole thread, whatever. I'm a huge fan of like, that's the quickest way to like do a shortcut is, just talk to somebody that knows a little bit more about something than you do, and that can pay dividends many times over. So I guess my advice would be find your community of people that are trying to do similar things. Find your community of people that know something about what it is that you're kind of passionate in trying to do, because I found that that's been useful to me every single time I've been kind of smart enough to try and tap into that. Yeah,
and that's great advice. I think that the more and the variety, too, of feedback that you can get helps, because a lot of people give you feedback and then you get the same question for different people and give you different feedback. So it's the variety. So it takes a village concept is a great suggestion, too. So love it.
Bingo. Yeah.
What is your favorite outdoor gear purchase under $100?
So I've got a few, and you can actually find them. Erem's got a third-party marketplace on our site called Erem Marketplace.
I saw that.
Yeah. And so our view is certainly a good experience outdoors definitely starts with the right footwear, but it doesn't end there. And we've definitely had some kind of our brand community, people in our brand community reach out to us for suggestions on different product categories. And so that's where this idea came from. And so just kind of a personal few favorites, I guess. Number one, water and shade, right? I guess 1 and 2, water and shade are kind of key for any big excursion, certainly in the desert, but any kind of place.
Even at elevation, water and shade. Yeah.
100%, even elevation, right? And so I guess starting with the water side of things, we have a little partnership with Clean Canteen. We have a custom Erem water bottle you can actually get on our site. I'm drinking from my Clean Canteen as we record this podcast now. They're really good people. They're doing really cool things from a sustainability standpoint.
Yeah.
They've got a number of products that are sub $100 from hydration systems. And so I would definitely feel very proud to be able to say that we have this kind of collaboration with them, and to recommend if folks haven't tried their brand before, definitely do. They're doing really cool things.
Yeah, we'll link to that in the show notes.
That'd be on the water side. Yeah, for sure. And then the other piece from a shade standpoint, I guess I could take that one of two ways, which is I think the older I get, the more value I place on sunscreen. And so there are a few brands that I particularly like. We're selling Sunbum on our site now. I really like their products. And so maybe if I was taking the shade direction another way, Outdoor Research makes some pretty cool hats too. All the stuff is definitely under $100. We got it all on the Erem Marketplace. And so water and shade, right? Water, shade, and footwear, and I think you're good to go.
There you go. Cool. Well, we'll link to all that stuff in the show notes. That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, Outdoor Research, I have a lot of their stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. Are you a big reader? What are some of your favorite books?
I am a big reader. I was an English major in college.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't realize it came with a lot of writing. I did it because I just thought you could read a lot, and I figured that'd be kind of cool, like get credits for stuff that I like to do anyways.
Right,
I like
to
read. And yeah, then turns out you have to write too. So that's that point. So a couple of books that I just would love to plug. So Rick, we were talking a little about water policy in the U.S.
Yep.
Cadillac Desert is a book that was recommended to me by Matt Nelson, executive director of the Arizona Trail Association. I'm proud that Erem is the official footwear of the Arizona Trail Association. Matt's just a really good dude, become a friend. And anyways, he recommended this book to me, and it is disturbingly eye-opening.
It's the classic book.
Really all about... Yeah,
everybody has to read it.
So yeah. Okay. I know you agree with me on this. You have to read it. You absolutely have to read it.
It should be required reading for everybody to sixth grade.
I completely agree.
Once you get to sixth grade, you got to read the book.
You want to understand current events in this country. You want to understand the challenges the environmental movement faces. You have to read this book. And so number one would be Cadillac Desert. Number two, I guess there's probably like a lot of books in this second bucket. For the past few months, I've been reading anything I can get my hands on by this author, Ivan Doig. Ivan Doig, he's a monk. He passed away, but I guess he grew up in Montana, and he just it's both fiction and nonfiction. And it's just like beautiful Western prose and novels. And I'm a big fiction guy too. And just his stuff is just incredible. And so it's beautiful.
How do you spell his last name?
Doig? D-O-I-G. And so for folks that are looking to just, again, like I love to escape into a good book. It's just, I could not recommend everything he's written. I could not recommend highly enough. I think I'm on like book number 8 or 9 of his in the past few months. It's just phenomenal. So yeah, highly recommend.
Excellent. Well, we'll link to those two. I'll have to look him up too and grab something. Yeah, sounds pretty good. As we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to say or ask of our listeners?
So definitely check out our Kickstarter. If you haven't yet, grab yourself a pair of Gila sandals when you can get the special Kickstarter pricing. So definitely check out our Kickstarter. That'd be number 1. Number 2 would for sure be just do a little research on cactus pears, a little bit of prickly pear, which is, I probably shouldn't be encouraging listeners to go do a little research, but I know if you start to dig and pull up some of these threads, I know you're going to agree with me that this idea has huge legs, and we're going to be looking for folks to get involved with this nonprofit on so many different levels. That we're going to be reaching out to individuals and businesses and organizations, because everybody can really help in a lot of different ways. And so I want to start to plant the seeds for what I think is going to be this next really big movement. And so, yeah, if you're not familiar with cactus pear, prickly pear, check it out. It's super cool. So I'd say those 2 things. Check out our Kickstarter, learn a little bit about.
And just Google growing cactus pears. That'll get us in the right spot.
Yeah, you definitely could. Check out what you can do. I had Professor John Cushman from the University of Nevada, Reno on my podcast, on our podcast, Desert Voices. And John, one of the premier, he knows more about cactus pear than anybody else on Earth. And so if folks want an intro to the topic, check out that podcast.
Yeah, I'll link to that.
It's a really cool way to solve. Just get involved. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we'll link to that in the show notes too. Yeah. And can't believe it, 2 podcasters here. We talked for 50 minutes and we haven't talked about podcasting. So your podcast, Desert Voices, great podcast. I'll link to that in the show notes. Everybody should listen to that if you get a chance. And where can people find you and follow up if they would like to reach out?
For sure. So we actually read every email that is sent to us at guide@eremlife.com. And when I say we, I mean I read every email that is sent to us at guide@eremlife.com. So definitely feel free to send us a note. Also, we're on social, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, you name it. And the thing is, we are a small brand, which means it's personal for us. So reach out to us. You will get a human being. It'll be me or one of my colleagues that are reaching out to you. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us what you think about this episode. Tell us what you think about our products. We'd love to connect. So yeah, please do reach out.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we'll link to all that stuff in the show notes. Well, it's been great catching up with you. I look forward to doing it in person on a hike someday, and we'll talk again soon.
Amen to that, Rick. Thanks so much for hosting me, and it's been a pleasure to come on the show.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, theoutdoorbizpodcast.com, where you'll find show notes with links to everything we talked about and more. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or spread the word and tell a friend about the show. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week. And thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Rick Sayes.